Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I figured that I started this franchise as a Stark supporter. I thought I would end with it as a Stark supporter, so let's get started. So the final episode of Game of Thrones has come and gone. So as always, for all you guys out there who still haven't caught up with this latest season of Game of Thrones and you don't want anything spoiled, get the fuck off my channel. But for those of you who have watched it or just don't care about spoilers or just don't care about Game of Thrones but still want to listen to me talk for some reason, let's get started. Let's talk Thrones for the last time. So the show picks up basically where they left off, except with, instead of everyone fleeing the city, people are starting to come back inside. Jon and his crew are looking around and they're just seeing the devastation. The entire city is just rubble and ash. I mean, it's looking like it's snowing, but it's just ash. All this ash is coming down. It's all over the place. There are those like ash corpses where the bodies are so burned, they're basically just ash piles that are just frozen in their last moments of pain and agony of just death. Lots and lots of dead bodies. Jon's looking around like, oh, this is what happens when a girl says it's fine. That's fuck. Tyrion's not happy about it at all. And he decides to go off on his own. And it turns out he's going to look for Jaime and Cersei. And he's going through the ruins of the Red Keep. And he comes to one of the doorways to the underground tunnel system that's down there. And it's mostly blocked off, but there's this small little crevice that he can crawl through. And he crawls through in there and he's looking around. It's the moment he sees that first rock pile, he's like, oh my god, the cave system collapsed. Please don't be in there. 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 But eventually he does come to one particular pile and he can just barely see Jaime's golden hand sticking out of it, and he just starts breaking down, but he still has to confirm it, has to know for sure, and he starts uncovering the rocks. He's crying, and then he finds Jaime and Cersei both laying there dead. Jaime still holding Cersei in his arms, even in death. But from the looks of it, from where you can see Tyrion walking through the tunnels, it almost seems as though if Jaime and Cersei were just standing like 5 feet to the right, they would have been completely fine. Which kind of confused me, because from the way the shot looked, it looked like the entire cave system was just collapsing in on them. But ultimately, I mean, there was really no place for them to go. By the time Jaime and Cersei got down to the lower levels of the Red Keep, those passageways were already blocked with rubble, and even if they had survived down there, there's basically nowhere for them to go. Even if at some point they eventually left the cave systems and just escape into the city, they would have certainly been found by one of the Starks or Unsullied, and then immediately handed over to Cersei, and then just boom, set on fire. They were going to die no matter what. We then jump to the front steps of the Red Keep where the Unsullied and Dothraki army has gathered. We see Jon, Grey Worm, and Arya who's slinking around in the shadows, just sort of peeking around all the soldiers and stuff. Daenerys comes in with Drogon, swoops in over everyone's head. The Dothraki are all like, woo! Daenerys finally lands, and then it cuts to the most perfect symbolic shot of Daenerys with Drogon right behind her where his wings come up and he's all stretching his wings, and it looks like his wings are popping out of Daenerys' back, and she just looks like a fucking devil. She starts giving a big speech to all the Unsullied and Dothraki, basically reciting what Drogo promised her. Jon's just standing over to the side like the First Lady, all like, I can neither confirm nor deny my approval of this situation. But then tops it off with, and now that I've achieved all of my goals, now we're going to take this freedom train on the road and we're going to share it around the world. Woo! Tyrion finally shows up and probably gives the best comeback of the season, where he stands next to Dany and she looks down at him and is like, hey, so your brother just spontaneously managed to escape. Care to explain that? To which he responds, yep, I freed him. I freed my brother, and you burned down an entire city and killed thousands. Basically implying, who did the most damage here? To which he takes off his Hand of the Queen pin and just tosses it, and during this time, all the Unsullied are like stamping their spears in celebration of Dany's victory, and then they just all stop when they see him do this, like, ooh, we're gonna see a little dwarf get caught on fire. Dany then has Tyrion imprisoned and he's marched away. And then she finally turns and starts heading off towards the Red Keep. Jon finally steps forward and is watching her leave. Arya shows up where they basically have a small conversation where Arya breaks it down like, yeah, she accomplished everything she wanted and more. And she is a total killer. And I can tell that because killers can recognize other killers. Jon then goes to visit Tyrion in his cell and is just like, why you gotta tempt the crazy bitch? But Jon's just like, she's my boo though, man, and I have to stand by my queen. But I think the most important part of the conversation that Tyrion has with Jon, that wherever Daenerys goes, bad people will die, and we cheer her for it. But the problem is, the more sure she becomes that she is doing the right thing, and the more emboldened she is with the power she holds, people's concerns over how she accomplishes removing bad people from power and killing them becomes less and less and less of an important thing to her, thus resulting in the burning of King's Landing. But Tyrion just keeps prodding him with it, where he's like, dude, you have to stop this. You heard her speech. You might not have understood it, but did it sound like she's done fighting? If you want the violence to stop, you need to get in there and... And all joking aside, even though when he leaves Tyrion's cell, you see that his words have weighed on him a lot. And just with the added pep talk Tyrion gave him, all basically revealing Dany as a monster in the making, you can just see it on his face as like, he doesn't want to have it come to the conclusion he knows it's most likely going to come to. Jon starts heading up to the throne room, but not before he runs into Drogon, who's guarding the entrance, and he just kind of pops out of the ashes looking like a pile of rubble. It shows Dany walking through the halls of the throne room, and it looks straight out of her vision from the Tower of the Undying. And she looks at the Iron Throne and she's just sort of staring at it until she turns around and she sees Jon just sort of standing there in the shadows. And Jon starts off with basically begging her to forgive Tyrion. Maybe not forgive him, but at least let him go, not execute him like he knows that she will do with him at some point. And Jon, he's just trying to give Daenerys every opportunity. He just wants an end to the violence. And Daenerys even sees this and she's trying to calm him and ease his mind that everything's going to be okay, and that as long as the two of them stick together, they'll be able to conquer the world, and he'll be able to direct their course to the right decision because he's a good person who knows what the right decisions are. And Jon's just like, no, I'm not the best person for the job for that. I'm not. And Dany, she's almost like trying to seduce him with the power almost, where she basically says, it's just going to be you and me where we can make all the decisions and we'll make the world a better place for it. To which Jon finally counters with, what about all the other people in the world that think they're doing the right thing? They don't get to make those decisions anymore. And you just see the look on Jon's face, the absolute look of defeat, where he knows what he has to do. And they begin kissing again. And I'm just sitting there like 3, 2, 1. And all of a sudden, Jon sticks her in the heart with his dagger. Dany's like, bae, the fuck? She goes down, she dies. Jon's holding her, he's crying, he's super sad. You hear in the background Drogon just like, Mom? Heard a ruckus up here, Mom. Did you finally kill that dickhead Jon Snow guy, Mom? I'm not going to call him Dad, Mom. And finds Jon standing over Daenerys' dead body with a dagger sticking out of his heart. I mean, it's actually really kind of sad because he's like nudging her body, trying to get her to move. She's not moving. He looks over at Jon and he just starts building up the fire inside of him. And instead of setting Jon on fire, he just starts burning the Iron Throne. And I'm sure at this point, Jon's just like, oh my God, what does a guy have to do to die? I've killed the woman I've loved most and I'm just so sick of living. Fuck! We then cut to a short amount of time later where the lords and ladies of Westeros have all gathered to sort of discuss what is to happen to Jon Snow and also who is going to become the new king, the new ruler of Westeros. And Grey Worm and Tyrion is there. And I actually don't really know why Tyrion was supposed to be there, because the moment he starts talking, even Grey Worm's like, you don't get to speak. But Tyrion does talk because that's the best thing he knows how to do. And he manages to convince everyone that Bran Stark is the best possible person for the job of the ruler of the Seven Kingdoms. To which everyone's reluctant at first, but then they all begin to come around to it, except for Sansa, who then proclaims that she's super happy for Bran to become the new king, and she knows that he'll rule the kingdoms well, but the North will never kneel to another ruler ever again, and that she is proclaiming herself as queen and basically breaking the North away from the rest of the other 6 kingdoms. So now it is no longer Bran, ruler of the 7 kingdoms, but Bran, ruler of the 6 kingdoms, which I feel like doesn't have the same nice ring to it. But we then cut to Jon, who's in his cell, and he just looks like an emotional wreck. The dude is he's just done. The guy's done. And when he's finally taken out of his cell, he's only then informed that the only way he was able to avoid being executed was that he was to be sent to the Wall to rejoin the Night's Watch, thus giving up any claim he had to the title of king in the 7 kingdoms, and would basically live out his life there, pretty much like he already intended to at the start of this show. And then we also learn that Grey Worm is taking the Unsullied and leaving Westeros basically forever to continue Dany's cause to fight for freedom across the world and free other nations, and he's basically heading to where Missandei lived first, which kind of confused me at first, because if the Unsullied are leaving forever and are not going to be around to ensure that Jon goes north and becomes part of of the Night's Watch like it was agreed upon. I'm not sure why, while Jon, Arya, Sansa, and Bran are all on the docks together, the conversation doesn't go, okay, they're going, and they're gone. All right, Jon, you can stay. It's all cool now. Wiggity, woo. But Arya informs everyone that she's going to be leaving Westeros and heading west of Westeros, where no one has ever gone before, and adventuring out there. Jon ends up following through with the deal and going towards the Wall to Castle Black. And the show basically wraps up from there in probably the most unexpected way possible for what we know for a Game of Thrones episode, where basically very few main characters die and almost everybody gets what they want in the end. Even Daenerys, who dies, essentially gets kind of what she wants in the end of everything, because she won the Iron Throne. It's destroyed so that no one else can take it from her at that point. And Grey Worm ends up taking the Unsullied and leaving Westeros to go and continue fighting for freedom like she wanted. Jon ends up going north to the Wall, where he finds Tormund waiting for him at Castle Black, and they all head out together with the surviving wildlings past the Wall. You actually see, as they're riding out, there are little tufts of grass poking through the snow, so the snow's melting, so it's not going to be a frozen wasteland anymore. And you see the door close behind Jon, so he's not going back to the Night's Watch. He's going to live out his life with the wildlings. Arya's heading west the way she wants to go and adventure and not just live out her life as a lady. Sansa becomes Queen of the North, and even Bronn gets Highgarden and gets everything Tyrion promised him in the end. Brienne and Podrick both become members of the new Kingsguard, and you actually get a kind of a touching scene where Brienne sits down with the book of the Kingsguard members and she fills out Jaime's missing pages with all of his deeds that he achieved in his life before he died. Overall, I'd have to say I don't hate this final episode. I'm just really more disappointed, but really it wasn't anything I wasn't expecting to happen with this sort of rushed final season that they gave us. I mean, at a certain point in a show's development, it achieves a certain set amount of hype from the buildup of the show, and when it finally comes to an end and concludes the story, we sort of expect the story to end with the same amount of hype as its highest point in the show. And with the way this final season was done, there was just really no way of accomplishing that. There is no possible way they could have concluded it in any sort of way that would have satisfied everyone in any kind of satisfying manner. I'm pretty okay with it. It's just I just would have liked there to have just been more. And this is probably going to sound like a double-edged sword a little bit, but they achieved the bare minimum of what they needed to do to get me back on board with Game of Thrones. I was fairly satisfied, not completely satisfied, but I could accept this ending for this show that I love so much. But that's really just my opinion. I understand that there are people that wanted a lot more from this show, and I understand that there are a lot of people who are upset about how this show was done and how it ended. Anyway, that's all the time I had for today, guys. I really hope you guys enjoyed this final review episode of Game of Thrones. If you'd like to see more, please subscribe. If you feel like I've earned it, give me a like. And as always, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. See ya.